want to talk to you about something really serious. I want to talk to you about death by inequality, which is the name of something I wrote during this past week. I want to talk about the needless deaths of 600,000 children over a 50-year period here in the United States because we don't care to do anything about poverty or institutional and structural racism. Now, 600,000 children is a staggering number. 600,000, and the number continues to rise because thousands more will die this year, according to a new report, and next year, and the year after that. 600,000 is more than the population of Tulsa, Oklahoma, or Oakland, California, or Minneapolis, Minnesota, or Omaha, Miami, Atlanta, or Milwaukee. An entire city of children has been lost. Now, if terrorists had taken out an American city, a medium-sized American city, our entire way of life would change. But because it's economic forces, we don't even pay attention, we don't even notice, we don't even seem to care. This is the real death tax. It's a tax on poverty, it's a tax on race, it's a tax on political powerlessness, and it's being paid in the lives of the innocent. Now, this information comes to us. We've known most of this for a long time, by the way, but a new analysis in the professional journal Health Affairs pulls it all together. A team of 4 researchers, physicians and epidemiologists and so on have compiled the data. You'd think with numbers like this that it would have led every news broadcast in the United States, but I don't even think it made one. It was not the headline story on CNN. It was not the headline story on Fox. It was not the headline story on MSNBC, which is more concerned apparently with how silly it finds Mitch McConnell, who is silly but is also deadly and part of the problem. Now, the report compared child mortality in the U.S. with similar ratios or rates of mortality in 19 other developed countries that are similar to the U.S. This comes from the data that developed countries all share. Now, some of the findings from this report: a child born in the United States is 76% more likely to die before reaching adulthood than a child born elsewhere in the developed world. Now, a child younger than 9 years old, from the age of 1 to 9, has a 57% higher likelihood of dying because they were born American. The leading cause of infant death was extreme immaturity, 3 times higher for American infants, followed by sudden infant death syndrome. Now, the authors say there is not a single category for which the other countries had higher mortality rates than the U.S. over the last 3 decades. They also found, and this is not irrelevant, quote, the U.S. spent, while we spend more on healthcare, the U.S. spends, quote, significantly less of its gross domestic product per capita on child health and welfare programs compared to other wealthy nations. Now, why does that matter? It matters because we have a healthcare system that doesn't cover everyone. We have a healthcare system that provides better coverage to the extremely wealthy and the well-to-do than it does to ordinary people. We have a healthcare system that asks for so much out of people's pockets that in many cases they can't afford to get the care they need. Other reports using similar data have shown, for example, that a large number of middle-class Americans report now, not poor in this case, middle class, report not getting the care they need because they couldn't afford it. The report's authors conclude that the United States is, quote, the most dangerous of wealthy nations for a child to be born into. Now, what does this tell us? First of all, we live in a country where inequality is profoundly worse than it is in Western Europe. We live in a country where inequality is closely correlated with things like race. We live in a country where African American infant mortality is 2.2 times higher than it is for non-Hispanic whites, where African American infants are 3.2 times more likely to die from complications of low birth weight and have more than twice the death rate of sudden infant death syndrome. The infant mortality rate in Mississippi is close to that of Costa Rica, Botswana, and Sri Lanka, and it's far away from that of the overall United States. A study in 2015 found that infants born in Washington, D.C.'s poorest neighborhood in Ward 8, right near here, those infants born there were 10 times more likely to die than infants born in its richest part of town. Now, Ward 8, in case you didn't guess this already, was 93.5% black at the time this happened. Now, I could go on and on and on with statistics, but the point is this. We are a nation plunging ever further into deep inequality. We are a nation that is in the process of shredding the inadequate social safety net it's had in place during this period of study. We are a nation where racism has caused poverty to be disproportionately distributed. By the way, most people on poverty assistance are white, but it still disproportionately hits Black and Latino populations. We live in a country that has abandoned entire generations of its children for no purpose other than inequity and greed. It must change.